I what I noticed about you, in a lot of your debates, and also when you were as a guest talking about these miracles, like you said, you wanted to provide not just an anecdote or not just a story, not just an eyewitness report or account, which we're not against because gospels are eyewitness reports, right? But I love that you wanted to go above that. You're like, hey, let's include science, let's include medicine, let's show the actual reports coming from hospitals and doctors. Like even if am biased, even if I want to be subjective, but check out this signature or this seal or this stamp from this doctor or from this clinic. And I enjoy how you present all these things, and I just love that you're being so professional, even if it takes extra time so you can publish your book. But I believe it will be good because even if skeptics want to comment, point fingers, oh, maybe this is invented. This you can always show them like, well, no, we actually have evidence. And the second thing that I love, not just in your intro, but from other videos, is like, yeah, I just don't want to show miracles from my denomination. I want to show from Eastern Orthodox,
Right.
from Catholics, from Pentecostal, from all these different churches, so we can show you that there are all these different accounts of miracles and healings. And I just want to say I respect that, and I believe that both of your books will be amazing. Okay, so when it comes to the first subtopic for tonight, I was thinking maybe we can start with the general topic of healings. I've heard
Mhm.
you mentioning over time so many different accounts, so many names, both from the past, from a few centuries ago, and modern. I'll just let you have the freedom of mention any name and from any country, from any era and period. Can you please share with us some very solid cases of healing that happened either in the States or abroad, either now or a while ago?
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. So the majority of the book does deal with healings. In fact, almost all of the cases I have are healings. A handful are where there's like a healing related, but it also is like a near death experience or an apparition or so forth. But generally, they are related to healings, and the reason for that is because I think healings are the easiest to document because it's not just people saying they saw something, although that is part of it, but it's people who are observing someone with a condition who's very sick, right? And they have records of it, and then you're observing someone who's no longer sick and you have records of it. And these standards of doctors observing patients we would accept in almost any context. You would accept it in a court of law if the doctor was competent and licensed and so forth. So medical documentation is generally non-controversial. Now, we do know that doctors make mistakes sometimes. Sometimes people have misdiagnoses. Sometimes people exaggerate claims. Sometimes people are psychosomatically sick, right? So you have to be able to account for all of those things. And so when we're looking for a miracle, what we want to do is if we're trying to rule out a natural explanation, at least to the best of our ability, first we need to say what is a miracle, and then say, well, what would we predict from this? And then we have to look at what's a natural cause for healing and how do we what do we know from that and how could we control for that. So a lot of people define miracle in different ways. I would go with Robert Larmer's definition, where a miracle is basically an act that is caused by God for a specific purpose, a theological purpose that stands out from nature. It's irregular to nature, right? So you have God causing it, you have it being for a specific purpose in a religious context, and you have this idea that it's irregular from nature. So there's kind of the three things you need. So I would say that one, when I'm looking at a miracle, I would ask, was there a religious context? Did the person just wake up and was better one day? Or did it happen immediately after prayer or going to a religious shrine or something that's relevant to that, right? So that's what we're looking for. And this is why most of the cases I include, it was something that happened either immediately after or very, very closely associated with the religious a prayer or shrine visit or something. It's not going to be where someone prayed to be healed and then 7 weeks later they happen to get better, right? Where you could just say that's a coincidence. We're looking for something that happened at that moment or very close to it. So I think that's one thing that you'd be looking for because of that religious context. Another one is the irregularities, right? How you would say it stands out from nature. But then the question is, well, how do we just know it's not something that's natural that we just don't know yet, right? What does it mean to stand out from nature? And that's where we have to look at what nature defines in terms of its healing. So we know that people can get better with medicine, right? So A miracle healing, I would say, has to happen spontaneously. There's no medication that would have worked. You can have palliative care that maybe improves life, but generally we want to deal with things that are incurable by medicine, or at least medicine was not going to be able to treat it effectively, especially if you have a case where someone's been getting medicine for a while and it clearly hasn't worked, right? And that goes to the second idea, is that people can get better over time, but generally it comes in phases. People have temporary remissions. And if you have a disease that's progressive, right, that is getting worse over time, that you've applied medicine and it does not work, or works very minimally, and that the person clearly is getting worse over time with treatment, then that disease is very unlikely to go away by itself, right? That means that your immune system has been fighting it and it's losing the battle. If it's continually gotten worse with age over time for several years, medication hasn't helped, the chances of that going into spontaneous remission are much, much more reduced. So we want a disease that's progressive, that's gotten worse, that hasn't gotten better. Another one is we want it to be something that's organic. We don't want it to be something that's psychosomatic. So people can strangely get paralysis or blindness or deafness, or feel really sick, and yet there's nothing actually wrong with them. It's stress. It's in their head. They're worried about something, but when you do a test, there's nothing that shows up on an X-ray that would indicate that there's something wrong with them. So those kinds of illnesses you can get rid of psychologically through suggestion. If you really empower the person, they can basically get themselves out of that. We don't want those cases either, because someone could be prayed for and they could really believe in it and that could get them better, and that's why they got better. We want something that's not going to go away just with the mind, right? A broken bone, a tumor, a genetic disease, those don't just go away because you really, really believe, because the placebo effect, right? There's there's a lot of limitations to that. Another one we want to be instantaneous, which I already said with the prayer association. So we know the human body is made up of different parts. There's cells, and these cells work together over time. But just like if you were building a building, you wouldn't just have a building show up immediately. You would drive by it and you see that they're building the foundation, then they're building the metal, they're building different parts, and piece by piece it gets built, right? Well, your human body is the same way. You don't have a scab that just instantly closes. You have a cut that becomes a scab, and that scab gets smaller and smaller over time until it gets better. People who have very serious illnesses typically get a gradual recovery. We don't want that. We want someone where they instantly got better, and we want it to be complete as well. So this wasn't just they improved. They got functionally better to where they no longer needed medicine. It was complete healing, either to the same degree before they were sick, or close enough to where they're functional, where they don't need medications, right? And the last thing, we want it to be permanent. We don't want someone to relapse, because we know serious diseases can come back. Unfortunately, lots of cases of cancer and neurological conditions do come back, and people think they're healed, and then 5 years later it relapses and they die from it. And those are really sad situations. So if we're looking for a healing that's contrary to nature, that goes against everything we know medicine, we want a healing that has all those characteristics. So that's what we're really looking for in that kind of context. And that's the the grind that I'm really judging a lot of these cases behind, right? So you'll get cases that maybe have 6 of those 7 criteria, or 5. The strongest ones are going to have 6 or 7, preferably 7. So I'm not saying that cases that don't have all those aren't miracles. I'm not saying that someone who really thinks they're healed by God, who doesn't have all those checked off, isn't healed by God, but it would reduce my confidence. And I think that the clearest miracles are ones that fulfill all those boxes.